Hi guys, welcome to a new video. I know it's been quite a while, but I've got a new nice device here that I can show you guys. And that is the new, just announced Xperia X10. In Holland at least, it was directly available after it was announced. So you got it in this morning, and I think it's time to take a look. So as you can see, pretty simplistic box really. I know in the other Xperias, especially with the X series, there was a lot more color involved, and also with the XZ2, that was also a different type of box. But let's not dwell on that too much and check out what we've got inside. We've got your standard accessories really. So we've got some paperwork here, charger, just a normal one, so no quick charging in the box, and of course headphones, because this phone does still have headphone jack. And here's the USB Type-C cable. So I think with this, all Sony phones currently being on sale now have USB Type-C. Let's get on to the main guest in this video, and that is the Sony Xperia X10 device. So that looks it looks pretty nice. I've got a blue version over here, and the hardware looks pretty good. Feels really solid, also pretty light. You've got the dual camera on the back with a LED flash and naturally NFC, the Sony logo and Xperia logo. On the bottom, I think only one of them is actually a speaker. We can check that out later in the video, and USB Type-C. On the left hand side, we have our SIM tray and our memory card slot, and those are actually, I will not pull them out now because I've already started the phone, but they're still, if you can just check it out, I can still actually get my finger on it with my nail and just remove that manually. Now on the right side is something pretty interesting, and something that let me down a little bit. So we've got the power on and off button over here. We've got a fingerprint sensor, but that does not double as a power on and off button anymore. That's not too bad. And also here we've got a volume rocker. Pretty good feedback as well. And also pretty nicely anodized. You can see that the sides of the buttons are actually shining, and that gives the phone a really high-end luxury feel. But what I'm really missing here is the camera button. That really hurts. That is no longer on the XA series, or that this one is actually replacing. So we had the XA2 and the XA1. They still did have the camera button, but the third generation in that line does not. So that's a little bit unfortunate. Go to the front. We've got a front earpiece, a front camera, which I believe is 8 megapixel on the front. Quote me if I'm wrong. And what's also pretty nice, if we actually turn on the screen of the phone, you can see it's a really nice screen. It's a very tall screen as well, with very thin bottom bezels actually, and that's I think one of the most intriguing things about this phone. The bottom bezel is so tiny. I mean, it's almost like on the iPhone 10 and phones like that, because you see a lot of manufacturers still have a very large bottom bezel. Top bezel is just normal, so it's not very thin. I think they could have made it a little thinner, but of course this is still a mid-range phone, so on the flagship Xperia 1, the top bezel is also pretty thin. And like I said, a 21:9 aspect ratio screen, which looks gorgeous. It's full HD resolution with an IPS, well, stretch full HD actually, with IPS technology, so not AMOLED. So if we check the fingerprint scanner real quick, just place my thumb on it, already configured it, and it's pretty fast. Looks pretty nice as well. So if we just round out the spec sheet of the phone, it's got a Snapdragon 630, which is a little middle of the road, but proves powerful enough for most daily tasks. For instance, it actually affords to let the camera play and also record in 4K resolution. It's got a 2870 milliamp hour battery, which again is not the biggest one. I think a very interesting comparison, if I can actually ever get my hands on one, would be the X-A2 Plus, which basically has the same specs as this phone, except for the 21:9 ratio screen and the cameras on the back. Speaking of the cameras on the back, it's a dual lens setup. So it's got a 13 megapixel sensor and a 5 megapixel sensor. And I'm told that the second lens is actually only there for bokeh. There's no optical image stabilization, but there is Sony steady shots. So if you're fine if you want to have good stabilized movies. It's got a dual LED flash over there and also NFC, which is also pretty nice. And on the bottom, again, USB Type-C. So the phone comes with 64 gigabytes of inbuilt storage, which is pretty nice, and expandable as well. And it's got 3 gigabytes of RAM, which I thought maybe they would allow a little bit more, but in my time, the phone runs pretty smooth, so there's no issues with performance. And like I said, on the front there's an 8 megapixel camera. What I find pretty interesting is the shape of the device. So it's 21:9, so it's very tall, but also pretty narrow. And actually, to best actually put that in perspective, I've actually brought my own device here right now that I'm still rocking to this day, and that is the Z5 Premium from 2015. And you can actually see very well here that the Sony is actually, the Z5 is actually a bigger phone still. And we can see actually that the tallness of the phones isn't that different. So you can actually, when I'm holding both phones, you can actually see here on the top or on the bottom that it's only slightly taller than the C5. But if we put them on top of each other, you can actually see here that the Xperia 10 is a lot less wider, so it's a lot narrower than the C5, and that in turn makes it actually feel a lot smaller in the hand. So that's a pretty interesting and a very well engineered by Sony, that they were able to put in such a big screen, because you can really see that the bottom bezels, of course, is no competition. This is like 2 or 3 generations between phones that you can compare them with. So that really, you can really see that it's much rounder shaped as well. So it is still rectangular, like any phone is actually technically, but it's a lot more rounded off than the old C series. And that's pretty interesting, because a lot of people in the previews at Mobile World Congress said that they're really returning to their older design. But as you can see, when comparing it to the older design, it is still a little different, a little bit more different. Just like the XC2, actually, I think is a great example that really stays in between. But I think what they mean is maybe that they have the flat backs now instead of the more wedged shape of those phones. So if you look at the interface, it's pretty straightforward. Got Android 9 Pie installed. You see also the fingerprint scanner. If we if we just do that, you can see I can activate it while the phone is off, and it's just very fast. I don't even have to put on my thumb completely. If I can just do like a little bit of my thumb, then it gets recognized pretty well. So that's also well done. So if we check out the interface, we've got the new Android 9 Pie, the gesture, so to speak. So we can actually multitask, use the gesture navigation, which is alright, but I am personally not a really big fan of it. And actually, I praised Sony for actually sticking to the buttons, because I think that's still the most effective and efficient way to use Android. What's gone, however, that I do miss is the app pane. This small gesture by toggling down, that you can actually search your apps like you can on iPhone, for example. That has now been replaced with pulling down the notification drawer. And I know many people have been asking for that, but I think it's all about personal preference. I actually thought it was nicer when I was able to just swipe down and search for my apps and get to my apps immediately. That's the way I kind of use my phones, but that might differ from person to person, I guess. So let's talk about that screen. So if we just take a look at some of the examples here, and you can just see the viewing angles are very, very nice, and you can actually see it overpowering my camera with its brightness. So let's just tone it down a bit. Still a little too bright. Yeah, so now we can get a good view of this and appreciate the screen. So you can see very nice black levels, high contrast, great color reproduction. And it's just very nice. And here you can also see that beautiful 21:9 aspect ratio. It just looks incredible. Incredible fidelity in colors. Okay, it's a bit of a weird picture, but I guess it works. Here you can really see the resolved detail and the contrast, and actually the bit. So actually the image sizes and what is able to actually generate. It's just a very pure and high quality. And Sony has often had great IPS screens, but I think this is probably one of the best, or the best they have had, next to one of the XC2 and XC2 Premium. And just look at those, that orange looks so vivid and nice. And also, of course, what this phone is about is the 21:9 aspect ratio. So it's really nice of Sony to actually include a clip here. And let's just check it out and see what it looks like. The screen is also pretty reflective, I must say. So let's just increase the brightness a little bit here. And then you see that reduces all of the reflectiveness of the screen. You can see really the nice edges of the screen, how thin they are. Actually, while watching this movie, it's incredible. And also, if we check out the speakers, also gets pretty loud. So you can really see that this is the sole speaker on the phone. So that's, of course, reminiscent of other mid-range Sony phones, that they don't get these stereo speakers, which is a shame really, because those stereo speakers are really, really nice. And you can see it's pretty loud, also pretty clear and crisp, but very easy to cover up. The phone is not waterproof as well, I need to mention that. So that's something you really need to also remember, because a lot of Sony phones are, but this one is not. Then also we've got something called SideSense, which debuted in the XC3 model. I have not had any of those phones, so I can't really comment on it. It looks alright, and the response is pretty good as well. And especially with such a tall phone, it comes in a little bit lower. So I think it's very easy to actually set it up. You know, you can have some toggles over here, auto rotation, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi. You can even activate one-handed mode from here. So I think it's pretty ergonomic. Let's see. I need to turn to the back area. Okay, so disable it. So that actually looks pretty good as well. Now, one of my disappointments, of course, is as I already showed you, as I'm showing you right now, I've got a list of applications here that are registered to my name, and mainly, you know, you guys, I like the themes, and unfortunately, the themes are not compatible anymore. So you cannot. Well, some of them are compatible, but only their wallpapers. So I haven't had the chance of handling the XE3, which actually was the first device of Sony to exhibit that new setup. Now I have, and yeah, I'm a little disappointed, a little bit gutted, guys, because is something that differentiates Sony from other phones. But the live wallpapers that you can choose are still active, as you can see in this clip. And that still looks good, you know, with all the unlocking animations, but still, I think I'm gonna miss it, because a lot of the awesome themes that I do have are not available anymore. So what's actually something that I'm very happy with, and that is still Sony, is that you still have some of these settings that you can change. So the settings menu is still Sony, even though like everything else is so stock at the moment. A lot of people love that. I like that to a certain degree, but I don't like it too, how you call it, too bare bones, I think is the nice word that we have. But one thing they do include, and that I actually really like, is that you can still go to the normal interaction. So you can disable the home button, and what do we have here? We have our traditional navigation keys. Kudos to Sony for including that in this late stage in Android Pie 9. I hope they keep doing that with other future Android updates, because really, guys, it's to me it's still the most easy and convenient way of actually navigating through the software, and actually, you know, it looks pretty nice as well on this bezel-less bottom display, bottom part of the phone, and this is really nice, and that they've still included that. So yes, as you can see, it's very awesome that you can actually set up the regular buttons. But I guess I do want to show you guys how the gestures do work. As you saw, I'm not really used to them yet, and they're very, I wouldn't say odd, but different. So actually, when you swipe up, you can actually get to all of your applications, and if you hold and swipe up, you can actually multitask. And even when you're in another app, so let's say we're here at Google, I can pull this and then slide to other apps. It's all right, and if you're in another app, it's pretty nice to just swipe up and be able to switch from apps. So I can also just toggle it, and then it just switches as well. But like I said, it's just not as convenient as just having those buttons. So back to the regular buttons, you can still swipe up. And what I also like is that you can still sort and arrange the apps. And that is something that a lot of people are like, oh, why can't I do that on my Android? But you can still actually do that. So you can do it by own order, you can do it by name, which I think is alphabetical then. And you can just rearrange them yourself as well. So if you want it somewhere else, you can actually rearrange it pretty easily. And that is just something we haven't seen before in Android 9 Pie in most of the ROMs. So I am really pleased that Sony has taken it upon themselves to actually do that. What is also pretty interesting, I think, if I do rearrange, can I create folders? Because yeah, I can also create folders in here, and that is something that is not standard for Android as well. So that's also pretty interesting that you can just do that. So that is, yeah, just again, the Sony software, I think it's slowly dying out, but it's still here, and it still has some very beneficial and very user-friendly and welcome features, and that is just something that is very nice. So you still get a stock experience, as stock as it's ever been actually on Sony's, but with the added Sony extras, which are very convenient for sorting your apps and yeah, actually being the boss of how you want to set up, how you want to navigate the phone. So again, guys, the themes is something that really hurts me, but you can also see we've still got the standard album app, which is really nice, as you can organize your photos a lot more effectively, very fast to scroll through. And also what I've seen is the music player being here. It's also very nice, of course. It's been stretched so to actually adapt to the screen, which is also pretty well done. So all in all, the user friendliness and the ROM of the phone, I am very pleased. And if we just go down to the settings real quick, you can actually see here in system that the phone is updated to Android 9, so that's pretty nice. And we also have some extra settings here on the power key, so that's also pretty nice. The only thing that I'm missing, but it's gone missing in Sony Android phones for a while now, is the double tap to wake feature and stuff like that. So that's, we can actually check here. We do still have the color gamut, so I have it on super vivid mode, perfect image quality, very nice. The screen also does get incredibly bright, as you can see, because actually I'm having it on a very low setting here right now, but the camera's already picking it up as being particularly bright, and so you should have no problem at all seeing the phone in outdoor in direct sunlight. We also have the white balance that you can still set up, so if you don't like the color temperature or anything like that, you can just change that as well. So it's just very, very nice to see that that is all still in the Sony ROM. So we've got some extra night light and everything like that over here. Let's see, maximum preferences. Yeah, so we've got the clocks. Unfortunately, again, because no themes, you cannot set up other clocks, because we can actually do, we can actually go to the lock screen real quick. And you can see here, you can still choose the different clocks, even the old one. I like the new clock as well. But of course, if you've seen it in my previous videos, there's a lot more awesome clocks that get included in themes that are surely very nice to have. I think all to do now is that we take a look at the camera. Camera has got a pretty interesting setup, I must say. So if we go here, we have some extra settings here that we can actually go to. So we still have the manual mode where we can turn on HDR, change the aspect ratio. We can use the full screen as well, which is pretty awesome. Although I don't really see the benefit of having ultra widescreen photos for social media, for example. We still have got the swipe gesture to actually, as you can see here, focus and change the camera settings from front to back. I saw you guys saw my weight setup. Yeah, man, I've got to make do. Phone came in and I just wanted to make a video as soon as possible for you guys. So here also you can check out the resolution, maximum of 13 megapixels. So we've got just to adjust. We've got metering, so the center spot or face detection. So that's all pretty good. So you can actually exit very easily from different modes. So that's also very, very nice. And here we are in normal mode. We can do slow motion mode as well. We can do bokeh. So 120 frames per second is the max it can do. Of course, other Sony phones can do 960 frames per second, so that's pretty nice. But I like it that they've made it very intuitive and very easy to use. So you've got all these little toggles here, you know, for flash red eye reduction, which is still something that it's not very common on other phones, which is very nice to have. We've got a timer, screen aspect ratio we already had. We can do the brightness manually. also exposure. So it's all pretty straightforward. We've got object tracking, of course, which is pretty nice. Auto photo preview, so when you see when you make a photo, you can actually have it pop up right after you've taken it. I don't have an SD card in the phone right now, but of course you can very easily do data storage to the SD card, and actually changing from video to photos also very easy. So all in all, it's very nice and a very nice upgrade to how the Sony camera interface was previously, because that was one of the things that they hadn't updated in quite a while. It wasn't even that it was inadequate, it was just not updated, and therefore not inadequate, but it's just something they had to change, and they actually did. So we've got all the standard Google apps installed. Speaking of apps installed, that is also something that's really awesome. As you can see here, I don't have a lot of apps installed, and that is because as you can see here, when setting up the phone, you can actually choose to have the pre-installed apps disabled, so you can actually for the first time, I think in a long time, actually choose if you want or which kind of pre-installed apps you want, which is awesome because now you're in full control of what so-called bloatware you want on your phone or not. So all in all, I thought I was gonna be a little bit more disappointed with how Sony handle things now with the ROM. But I must say I'm very pleased that they still, like I said, kept some of the key features like you know, app selection, app sorting, adjustment of navigation, that they have all kept that in the phone, and that is just something I can appreciate, and something that makes it a better phone as well, especially if you compare it to Android One models, which are pretty bare bones. Do get the latest updates, but in terms of user friendliness, you give up a little bit too much. And I must say, I haven't experienced the XZ3 again because it has a curved screen, but here the side sense, it's pretty easy to activate, and it's also not obnoxious. It's not like you'll accidentally just touch it. So it's very neatly done, and another great feature of the phone. So yeah, the 21:9 aspect ratio. I think what's maybe nice that we can do just for a second is check out Netflix and actually see if it actually adjusts as well. So let me just check that for a second. Let's watch a movie. Yes, I know. Okay, wow. I don't know how I activated it, but I guess it is compatible with Netflix. So let's just crank up that. So I've not seen the movie yet, so I don't know if there's any action shots in here. So yeah, the display quality is just incredible. It's just incredible. And the aspect ratio is just very nice. Let's see if we've got a TV show actually that we can check out. So we've got The Bodyguard. Wow. So you see, you can just actually by pinch to zoom, sort of, you can change the aspect ratio. So let's just have, I don't know, I think we've got an action scene in this one. Yeah, this one. So that just looks gorgeous. I have to say. And as you can see, just like with other phones, you can change the aspect ratio whenever you want. You see if there's any cutoff. Just a little bit. But you see that it still looks pretty good. And of course, a new feature that you have right now, that I didn't even know that counted for Netflix as well. You can actually just watch your Netflix while you're doing something else. I think that's a bonus feature, very nice with the tall aspect ratio here. That is just incredibly well done. So I can just start the browser here, do something else while I'm watching something as well. That's just very well done. Speaking of multitasking, let's just quit this for a second. Let's just see how we activate that. That's pretty bad. So usually when you're multitasking, you could just have an app open, hold the task switcher button, and then actually do your multitasking. So if we do that here for a second. So let's say we have the Play Store open, and I want to do something in between. I can just hold this and just go in here and go to YouTube, for example. Very easy. But here, unfortunately, we can't do that anymore. I do remember how to do it on the new Android. I think we have to press this button and do split screen. Yeah. So yeah, not as convenient, but yeah, it works. And like I said, or like Sony says actually in their advertisement, this is very, very generous, screen to work with concerning that. Let me just see if Facebook is pre-installed. I don't think I did install it yet, or did I? Update it. Let's just have that in the background for now. Let's actually just open up a game. Actually see that, because Snapdragon 630, not really a fan, not really against it. The phone doesn't have the biggest battery, especially considering the screen size, so I suppose the 630 is an okay chip to go with. And graphically it's up to par. As you can see, the navigation, everything goes pretty fast, so that's nothing really to sweat about. And I don't think I would hold it against this phone, because the thing is, that is true actually at the moment, is there are phones with similar prices but with a much faster 835 or 845 chip even. Here in Holland, for instance, the XC2 is just as expensive in silver as this model. So that's an interesting choice. But again, you also choose this phone if you like the design and if you're going to watch a lot of movies and don't want your phone to be too big. Because right now it just looks incredible. Also, gaming is pretty good. This is Asphalt 9, and as you can see as well, Asphalt 9 is adapted to the aspect ratio. Not all games have adapted yet though, so that's pretty interesting as well. Let's just go back to the game for now, if we're allowed to. Thank you. Okay, that's not very nice. So yeah, that looks pretty good in general actually. Let's just go back to Facebook a second. As you can see, that is a 630 thing, I think. I haven't noticed that on other phones. Sometimes when switching from heavy apps to, for instance, Facebook in this case, it's not really as responsive as it would normally be. So that is a bit of a thing with the 630. But again, if you're not really a gamer, then it's not going to be burdensome that much. The phone, I'm not sure if it's powerful enough to play Fortnite. I don't really think so. But we could always check the website because those things get updated. So it's not really a gaming phone. So just to be specific, it is an entertainment phone. So if we go to YouTube as well, which should be pretty interesting, really. Yeah, that's always with Android. You get a new Android, you gotta update the applications. Let's do that real quick. Let's actually see how fast it does that. Because Wi-Fi, I have to say, the speeds and everything look pretty solid. As you can see, 30 MB update, pretty nice, pretty swift as well. Let's just see how long it takes to install. Not that long either, actually. Well, YouTube has already been updated to the, let's say, to the aspect ratio as well. So let's see if we can just watch the trailer here. Because I think YouTube is not... Oh, wow. Okay. YouTube is also adjusted, so you can actually zoom in and use the full 21:9 aspect ratio on YouTube as well. I have to say, Sony really did their homework on this, because usually, even on the iPhone, sometimes when they come up with a new screen or a new aspect ratio, it always takes a little while to adjust. But this is just very nice. Controls are there. If you want to go to another video, I can do that as well. Very well done. So let's just get it out of the way before we go into any of the copyrights. Let's also check with everything I've installed so far what the internal storage looks like. Oops. So we've got about, of course, like I said, 64 gigabytes of storage. And you can see we still have, let's see, what's pretty interesting what they're saying. Let's see, 17.76 use of 64 gigabytes of storage. But actually a good app to check your storage is Netflix as well, because of course it lets you download things offline. And here you can see actually that we have about 47 gigabytes available. And what's also pretty nice with Netflix now, of course I haven't put in an SD card, an external storage unit in the device yet, but if you so please, you could actually store the offline Netflix files onto the SD card as well. Actually, I think there's also a campaign running from Sony, which I'm also going to try and do, and that is that you can get a 64 gigabyte SD card for free because you're buying an Xperia 10 in the month of March. So yeah, guys, it looks like a pretty complete mid-range package with a viewing, let's say a flagship viewing experience. Very nice. The phone also feels fast enough for most daily tasks, switching between apps. Not as fast as I would have liked, but as you can see, in general, pretty swift. And fast enough. So guys, this has been my extended look at the Xperia 10 from Sony. You also got the Xperia 10 Plus, of course. I don't think I'll get my hands on that one, but a lot of things that this one has, that one has as well. So great display. The 21:9 aspect ratio is very easy to live with because nearly all the apps, let's just say all the multimedia apps have already been adapted. Some of the games as well. And of course, like for social media, let's just go to Facebook real quick and I'll log in. Okay, I'm not gonna post anything. So yeah, okay, let's update that. Yeah, it's very nice for scrolling through social media, I must say, because of the tall aspect ratio. Your nice commercial from the Xperia 10. You know, it's barely been out, and we've already got it here in Holland. Holland can be pretty funny with those things sometimes. Sometimes it takes really long for these phones to get through, but sometimes we have them faster than anybody else. So yeah, you see, for social media, it's just very nice to have as well. And like I said, I'm personally not a fan of that new Android gesture system, but here on Sony, if you're not either, you can actually still have the normal buttons if you so please. So yeah, guys, let me know in the comments if you want any extra info on the phone, if you want like an even more extended review, if you want me to compare it to another phone, or make a separate video on gaming or watching movies, or other applications that you want to know how to run, how they run on this phone. But I have to say, guys, in general, great device. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in my next one very soon.